adverse impact to unintended third-party impactee may be a necessary byproduct of legitimate economic activities. To eliminate adverse impact is to deny the existence of legitimate economic activities. A more reasonable solution is to have an efficient level of adverse impact. Adverse impact is efficient when its net benefit is maximized. This happens when the marginal benefit to the impactor is equal to the marginal cost to the impactee, regardless of whether the impactor has the property right to generate adverse impact or the impactee has the right to receive zero adverse impact. Suppose an impactor can derive benefit from generating adverse impact, then the ability to impact can be regarded as an input to the impactor's output. It is reasonable to assume that the marginal benefit MBG from more adverse impact will decline as more impact is generated. If the impactor could impact without any private cost, it would produce Y2 amount of adverse impact because each additional unit contributes to the impactor's total benefit, TBG. But adverse impact generates cost for the impactee. The marginal cost, MCR, to the impactee increases as more adverse impact is received. Each additional unit of adverse impact adds to the impactee's total cost, TCR. When the impactor's marginal benefit is equal to the impactee's marginal cost, the optimal amount of adverse impact Y1 is achieved. At Y1, the vertical distance between total benefit and total cost is the greatest, indicating maximum net societal benefit. The parallel tangents indicate that MBG is equal to MCR. Suppose the impactor has the right to generate adverse impact. The impactor would prefer to produce at Y2, where TBG is the greatest. But the optimal societal amount is at Y1, where MBG is equal to MCR. The parties can get to this optimal adverse impact through bargaining, if the property rights are clearly defined. Since the impactor has the right, the impactee must compensate the impactor for the lost benefit that could have been earned had he been able to produce at Y2, namely delta TBG. Delta TCR is the cost that would have been saved by the impactee if impact is at Y1 rather than at Y2. Since the additional cost to the impactee, namely delta TCR, is higher than the additional benefit to the impactor, namely delta TBG, for additional impact beyond Y1, the impactee has the means to bribe the impactor to produce the optimal amount of impact at Y1. If the whole cost savings goes to the impactor, the impactee is no better off at Y1 than at Y2. If the impactor is compensated for only what he could have gained by producing at Y2 instead of Y1, the impactee would have come out ahead while the impactor is no worse off. But if the compensation is between the best point and the break-even point for the impactor and the impactee respectively, both parties will be better off at Y1 compared to Y2. Suppose the impactee has the right to zero adverse impact. The impactee would prefer to have zero impact at Y0, where TCR is 0, while the optimal amount of impact is at Y1 for society. To get from Y0 to Y1, the impactor must compensate the impactee for the cost that has to be incurred. Delta TCR is the minimum acceptable compensation. The maximum amount of compensation affordable by the impactor is the vertical gap between TB at zero impact and TB at Y1, namely delta TBG. Since delta TBG is greater than delta TCR, the impactor can afford to bribe the impactee into accepting Y1. If the whole benefit goes to the impactee, the impactor is no better off at Y1 than at Y0. But if the compensation is just high enough to offset the additional cost to the impactee, the impactor is better off, while the impactee is no worse off at Y1 than at Y0. Observation 1. At the break-even point for the impactee, the green bar below the horizontal axis is equal to the TCR at Y1, namely delta TCR, the minimum acceptable compensation. Observation 2. The green bar above the horizontal axis represents remaining delta TBG for the impactor, after just offsetting the impactee's additional cost from zero impact. And if the compensation is between the best point and the break-even point for the impactor and the impactee respectively, both parties will be better off at Y1 compared to Y0. Although the party that does not have the right may have enough means to bribe the right owner into moving towards the efficient level of adverse impact, substantial negotiation cost may prevent an attractive bribe. Suppose the impactor has the right to generate adverse impact. The impactor would prefer to produce at Y2, where TBG is the greatest. Suppose the impactee has the right to zero impact. The impactee would prefer to have zero impact at Y0, where TCR is 0. But the efficient impact is at Y1, where MBG is equal to MCR, and net benefit is maximized, regardless of the assignment of property right. Since the additional cost to the impactee is higher than the additional benefit to the impactor for additional impact beyond Y1, the impactee has the means to bribe the impactor to produce the optimal amount of impact at Y1. If the compensation is less than the impactee's cost savings, but higher than the impactor's foregone benefit from Y2 to Y1, both parties will be better off at Y1. Since the additional total benefit to the impactor is greater than the additional total cost to the impactee for the impact between zero impact and Y1, the impactor can afford to bribe the impactee into accepting Y1. If the compensation is less than the impactor's additional benefit, but higher than the impactee's additional cost from Y0 to Y1, both parties will be better off at Y1. Thus, regardless of the assignment of rights, both parties will be better off at Y1 than at Y2 or Y0. But if the negotiation cost equals or exceeds the gap between delta TBG and delta TCR, the efficient impact will not be achieved, because there would not be enough left over to make the right owner happy to give up its right. In other words, if the negotiation cost exceeds the maximum allowable level, giving the right to the impactor would freeze the impact at Y2, and giving the right to the impactee would freeze the impact at Y0. In view of substantial negotiation cost, the best way to achieve efficient adverse impact is not to grant blanket rights to one party or another, hoping for a negotiated settlement. If the negotiation cost exceeds the maximum allowable level, giving the right to the impactor would freeze impact at Y2, and giving the right to the impactee would freeze impact at Y0. Even if negotiation cost is not an issue, the bribe needed to compensate the right owner usually exceeds the actual loss. The ideal assignment of right would ensure that the right owner is no worse off than what he or she would have been had efficient impact existed all along. This would happen if some right is taken away from the party that loses less than the party that gains by moving from its preferred impact to the efficient impact. If the impactor is allowed to impact no more than Y1, it would cost society less by forcing the impactor to cut impact from Y2 to Y1 than requiring the impactee to compensate the impactor or subjecting the impactee to maximum adverse impact. Since the impactor can cut impact unilaterally, no negotiation cost is involved. Similarly, if the impactee has the right to suffer no more than Y1 impact, it would cost society less by forcing the impactee to put up with Y1, then requiring the impactor to compensate the impactee, or shutting the impactor down. Since the impactee can suffer unilaterally, no negotiation cost is involved. Therefore, denying some right to the party that has lower costs of moving to the efficient impact ensures that efficient impact will be achieved if negotiation cost is substantial.